The drop punt is one of the most common kicks used in AFL. When performed correctly, you'll be able to kick the ball to a teammate or kick a goal. The aim of this 4-week training program is to teach a novice learner how to execute the drop punt.
To classify the skill, we first started with a one-dimensional analysis in which we looked at whether the skill was an open or closed, gross or fine, continuous or discrete. We found that it was leaned towards the closed side, the gross side and the discrete side. However, once we moved from the teaching to actually applying this skill in game, we would move more from the closed side to an open side, as we have to take into account the environment, whether it's windy or not, opposition players and a target you're actually kicking it to.
We use Gentile's 2D taxonomy to show the progression of the skill from week 1 to 4 as the functional and environmental difficulty increases.
In week 1, the skill is very basic, in which we do not move, nor does the environment change. From that we progress to week 2, where we're moving a little bit, week 3 where we're moving a bit and also the environment is changing slightly, to week 4 where we're moving largely and also the environment is actively changing.
Every player's AFL drop punt technique is different depending on what's most comfortable for them. However, they follow 3 distinct phases. The first phase is the preparation phase, as shown here by Trent Cotchin from the Richmond Football Club. This phase involves ball grip and ball drop. The next phase is the execution phase, which is arguably the most important phase out of the 3. The execution phase involves backswing of the striking leg, ball guide, as shown here by Chris Judd from the Carlton Football Club, contact of the ball, the foot position, and body position. The final phase of the drop punt is the follow through. This phase involves the striking leg, following through as much as possible, as shown here by Tom Hawkins from the Geelong Football Club. According to Moreno and O'Donoghue, high practice variability will increase motor learning. However, as we are training a novice, we want to have training sessions that have low contextual interference, such as block practice. As the learner becomes more familiar with the skills, we'll move into sessions that have high contextual interference and random practice. This will in turn increase retention. According to previous research, it is beneficial for the learner if a full demonstration is given beforehand. According to Fitz's 3 stages of learning, our learner will be at a cognitive stage at the start of the sessions. Therefore, they must experience the fundamentals of the skill first. Therefore, in week 1, we'll start with the proper positioning of the ball in the hands, and it is probably the most important part of the skill. The ideal position for the hands in a drop punt is both hands evenly spread on each other ball and fingers close to the laces. As well as being able to position the ball properly in the hands, we expect the learner in week 1 to be able to kick the ball without a guide and the ball spin backwards towards the target. This drill attempts the learner to get a feel for the ball on the foot, as well as managing to spin the ball backwards in the right direction. With regards to the progression in week 2, we want them to be able to take what they learnt from week 1 with holding the ball properly and the grip, and putting a bit more emphasis on the guiding of the ball down to the foot. In this drill, we attempt to minimise as many movement factors as possible so that the learner is able to properly master the guiding of the ball. The proper guidance of the ball requires you to keep your head over the ball at all times, as well as keep your dominant hand on the ball up until waist height and then slowly move it away. We will then move into a drill that focuses on the full action of the kick, but mainly focusing on the guiding of the ball rather than the contact until the learner feels they're actually ready for it. As shown here, we will guide the ball down as you will do in a normal kick, but just miss the foot and just focus on the guidance of the ball. After we have gone through guiding of the ball, we'll start to put all the pieces together from the previous weeks and end up properly kicking the ball with the proper technique. Now by week 4, we expect the learner to be at an associative stages of their learning. Therefore, we'll start to focus on the contact of the ball, as well as beginning to add some other factors such as execution on the run to make just that a little bit more difficult.
The measures of an AFL kick can be taken in many different ways. such as the quantitative measures, such as the amount of targets hit, the distance of the kick, and the height of the ball drop in relation to the foot.
Qualitative measures of performance in AFL focus on the actual quality of the kick itself, such as ball spin, ball drop, and contact of the ball on the foot. Transfer learning refers to previous experiences from other sports that could benefit the learner. For example, if the learner has experience with rugby, we could start with kicking a rugby ball to familiarise the learner with the skill, as well as getting them to kick a tennis ball. This could then increase their attention towards the training.
Retention and transfer tests relate to how well the participant remembers the actual kick itself. A retention test tests how well the participant remembers the actual skill. A transfer test is how well the participant adapts to a new situation with the skill. In week 1, the participant will complete a retention test, kicking the ball into a large square of cones. This requires the participant to hit the target. In week 2, the participant will complete a similar test, but this time the cones will be made into a smaller square to make the skill more difficult to complete. In week 3, the participant will start to hit human targets. To start off with, the human target will be stationary and able to move to the left or right in order to complete the mark and catch the ball. In week 4, the participant will hit a moving human target. This becomes a transfer test, seeing how well they adapt to a new situation. By completing these tests, we are able to see the progression of the learner and see how well they have learnt the kick.
Intrinsic motivation is the motivation that comes from within, that is motivated by yourself. Extrinsic motivation comes from outside sources, such as rewards and extra privileges. In the short term, the goals are to improve the amount of targets hit each week, kicking more balls with correct backspin each week, and achieving a better ball drop. Whilst in the long term, we set our target to be being able to kick on the run, being able to hit goals from distance on the run, and being able to hit targets from distance whilst moving. Through part practice, we are able to practice the ball drop. This involves bouncing the ball on both hands in order to achieve a better control over the ball drop onto the foot. Whilst practicing the whole kick, we require whole practice, as it is a large skill and is very hard to break down apart from the ball drop at the start. Through whole practice, we are able to practice the leg swing, the ball contact, and the ball drop all in the one thing to make it easier for the participant to practice it together. In order to see improvement, we advise that our participant practice 3 to 4 sessions a week. Through expert advice, it is advised that participant repeats the skill at least 100 times or more per session. This should be utilised in distributed practice, enabling the coaches to give feedback after a session of kicks.
As Billaday and Shumsky showed, providing feedback is an important part of improving performance. But Winstead and Smith found that just having feedback isn't always effective at improving learning. Therefore, you have to use it properly. Thus, for our augmentative feedback, we will want to be basic and frequent at the start to help our cognitive learners progress through the early stages of the skill efficiently. Then, we will want to progress to the less of the verbal and written cues and more into the questions that will allow our learner to independently start to improve their technique whilst developing their problem-solving skills.